People who cheated death.
Stephen McCormack. Stephen, an experienced truck driver from New Zealand, was working on his truck. He was positioned between the truck's bumper and the trailer when something crazy happened.
Don't
he
tell me
slipped and fell, but something felt off. He didn't feel just regular pain. He felt his body inflating like a balloon, nearly doubling in size. His colleagues and his son rushed to help him, quickly realizing what had actually happened.
What?
Stephen had fallen onto the brass valve that supplies compressed air to the truck's brakes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Bro, no. Bro, no way he got inflated
The
like a
valve
balloon.
punctured his bum, forcing pressurized air into his body. They immediately shut off the air supply, laid him on the ground, and called an ambulance.
Bro.
Unfortunately, both emergency vehicles in the area were occupied, forcing him to wait in that state for an entire hour. When he finally arrived at the hospital, doctors understood the severity of his condition. The air had separated fat tissue from muscle, filling his abdomen, chest, and even the spaces around his lungs, heart, and behind his eyelids. To help him breathe, doctors inserted a tube through his ribs and into his lungs. As for the trapped air, it had to be expelled naturally through farts, a process that took 3 days. Stephen made a full recovery, and doctors later determined that if the valve had punctured another part of his body, it could have damaged a blood vessel, and he would have died.
Oh my gosh, ain't no way, bro. Literally got inflated up the— Yo, out of all the places. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, yo, if you have a fat butt, that wouldn't have happened. This is crazy what I'm saying, but like, if you had a skinny butt, the freaking tube probably definitely went in. If you have a fat butt, there's no way— Yo, what am I doing? There's no way, like, the little tube part would stick inside. Yo, no way, bro, survive. Hey, Stephen McCormack, you a G, bro.
Joan Murray was an experienced skydiver, having already completed 35 jumps. It was supposed to be just another routine dive, and as she plummeted at 120 miles per hour, she attempted to deploy her parachute. I say attempted because it didn't open.
That's everybody's worst fear, bro. Literally every worst fear. Like, I've skydived before, and let me tell you, that was all I was thinking. Dude, I'm a guy that just can't enjoy that feeling of, like, I'm not sure what it's called, but like the drop tower feeling when you just go straight down. Bro, I was fighting for my life. I was so tense. Normally, you're supposed to be, hey, whoa. Dude, I was clenching so hard. I was shaking, bro.
After multiple tries, she reached for her reserve parachute, which, to her relief, deployed successfully. However, another problem quickly arose. She began spinning uncontrollably, causing the parachute's cords to tangle into a knot, rendering it useless.
No way. How is she surviving?
She crashed into the ground at 80 miles per hour, and upon impact, she heard a loud crack before losing consciousness. Joan fell into a coma and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors performed multiple complex reconstructive surgeries and blood transfusions. The entire right side of her body was crushed, yet incredibly, 2 weeks later, she woke up from the coma and made a full recovery.
Hey! That is literally a 1 out of 1 trillion chance moment. I'm not even joking. Like, how she literally survived everyone's worst fear of skydiving.
The reason she survived was just crazy. By pure chance, she landed directly on a fire ant nest, disturbing the venomous ants. In response, they came out of their nests and swarmed her body, stinging and biting her over 200 times. Fire ant venom, known as solanopsin, stimulates the nervous system. The overwhelming amount of it that was injected into her body kept her heart beating until paramedics arrived, saving her life.
Okay, nah, this is not a 1 out of 1 trillion chance. This is out of 1 quintillion chance of this happening. Bro, her first parachute didn't work. That's really unfortunate. That's a high chance. Usually it should work. Then she pulled out her reserve parachute, right? But then she spun around so fast that like it was pretty much useless. Fell 80 miles per hour, and supposedly she fell in a fire ant house. Like, the chances of all that happening is just holy smokes.
Margaret Guire. Margaret was a young Canadian woman who had just married her husband, Herbert, in 1915. To celebrate, they decided to take a trip and boarded the RMS Lusitania in New York City, bound for Liverpool. They were enjoying their trip, having a routine dinner on the ship, when suddenly they heard a loud boom. The ship had been torpedoed by a German submarine.
Yo, what are we doing, bro? Yo, Germans, bro. Yo, what are we doing, bro?
Herbert immediately escorted his wife Margaret to a lifeboat, where she was joined by 3 other women and a baby. However, as she looked up, she saw the ship's massive smokestacks above them, and she feared they might collapse onto their lifeboat. In a moment of panic, she climbed back up the stairs to the deck, while Herbert, believing she was safe, boarded another lifeboat with other passengers. As the Lusitania rapidly sank, Margaret tried to swim away from the wreckage, but her efforts were in vain. A whirlpool formed as the ship submerged, pulling her and 2 other men into one of the smokestacks. Miraculously, a sudden explosion from below blasted her back to—
So I'm sorry for pausing the video. This is some circus cartoon event.
To the surface, where she was spotted and rescued by a nearby lifeboat. As she looked around, she saw Herbert in another lifeboat crying, believing she had died. Julie McSorley.
A whirlpool sucked into the freaking smoke tube and blasted off like a can. What the cartoon Looney Tune cheated death moment, bro. Yo, dude, you know these are so crazy that you just genuinely don't believe these are real. I would have to see these with my eyes. Like, even though these are real, I'm pretty sure that, but like, I just can't fathom it.
Julie McSorley and Liz Cottrell were kayaking in San Luis Obispo, California, drawn by a spectacular event, humpback whales feeding on fish in the bay. There were lots of tourists on their boats and kayaks watching the whole thing. And
don't tell me one of them got swallowed, bro. Don't tell me.
Even though whale watching is a popular activity, it comes with important safety precautions. Experts recommend staying at least 300 feet away from the feeding zone to avoid dangerous encounters. Unfortunately, Julie and Liz misjudged the distance. A tightly packed swarm of fish, known as a bait ball, suddenly moved alarmingly close to them, but they weren't the only ones to notice. Their presence had also caught the attention of a humpback whale. Before they had time to react, the whale lunged forward to swallow the fish, but in the process, it also scooped up Julie and Liz.
I caught it. What we're gonna do before each death, we're gonna guess what actually happens and how they recover.
Trapped inside its massive mouth, they probably thought that they were about to be swallowed whole. After all, humpback whales can grow up to 56 feet long, a huge size from a human perspective. However, despite their enormous mouths, humpback whales have relatively small throats, only about the size of a human fist and capable of stretching to just 15 inches in diameter.
What? That's it? Smaller throat? What the?
They also lack teeth, meaning the two women weren't crushed. Luckily, a whale's natural instinct is to spit out anything that isn't fish, and that's exactly what happened. Moments later, Julie and Liz were spat out from the whale's mouth and surfaced unharmed. Matthew Lowe.
You know, wait, I gotta say, Julie McSorley. Oh my gosh, God wanna buy whale. Ain't no way this is. That's so freaking crazy.
Matthew Lowe.
We have looks like to appear rib cage. Let's watch like the first 5 seconds or so, and then guess.
Matthew was heading to his factory for a routine shift, just like any other day. Upon arriving, he immediately—
Okay. He gets trapped into a machine and somehow makes it alive. Like, he literally could have died, but some miracle happened because these people who cheated death, and somehow he got alive.
to work. As he walked past an automated conveyor belt, he suddenly felt his overalls snag on something. Unfortunately, it was the conveyor itself. Before he could react, he was pulled onto the belt and dragged toward a 5-inch opening. Within seconds, his entire body was forced through the narrow tunnel. He could hear the cracks of his bones as the machine spat him out on the other side. Miraculously, he remained conscious. Matthew's agonizing screams alerted his coworkers, who rushed to the scene. What they saw was horrifying. His back was broken in 2 places, his pelvis, ribs, and hips were nearly completely crushed, and his abdomen was severely torn. He was rushed to the hospital, but doctors had little hope for his survival. They even advised his partner to prepare for the worst. However, against all odds, Matthew survived.
How?
After 6 surgeries and a month in the hospital, he slowly began to recover. 18 months later, he made a full recovery and even returned to work.
Yo, there was no miracle that happened, bro. It was just him. I don't know how this guy survived, but yo, he's him. All right, now we have the next one. Taiba stabbed to the head, but fortunately lived.
Taiba, a young Indian girl, went out for a walk when she came across a construction site. Intrigued, she decided to explore the area.
This is low-key natural selection, bro.
The site was filled with debris and half-finished structures, making it extremely risky to navigate, especially without proper equipment or experience. As she walked through the site, she tripped and fell neck-first onto a long metal rod protruding from a brick. Bystanders witnessed the horrifying scene and immediately called for an ambulance. When Taiba arrived at the hospital, doctors were left stunned. Miraculously, the rod had missed all vital nerves and blood vessels in her head. After a 35-minute surgery, doctors successfully removed the rod. Amazingly, she was discharged just 3 days later.
What? Yo, all these people's in this video, buy a lottery ticket now.
At surgery, doctors successfully removed the rod. Amazingly, she was discharged just 3 days later. Had she fallen just a few inches further forward, she would have died. Frain Selak.
Alright, Frain Selak. Let's see. They crashed into a train and somehow survived. That's my guess.
Frain Selak is an elderly music teacher from Croatia, and he's both the luckiest and unluckiest man on Earth. His first crazy experience happened in 1962 when he was on a train. A fault in the tracks caused the train to derail and plunge into the freezing river below.
Oh my gosh.
Most passengers either died in the crash or drowned in the submerged train, but Frayne miraculously survived with only a broken arm and managed to swim to shore. In 1963, just a year after the train incident, he was on a small plane when, mid-flight, both engines failed.
What?
As the aircraft went into a free fall, a malfunctioning door blew open, yanking Frayne out of the plane. Without a parachute, he must have thought he was going to die. The plane crashed into a hill, killing all 19 passengers on board. However, Frayne survived by landing on a haystack, escaping with only minor injuries.
Minor injuries. Yo, Frayne select, bruh. Look at this, yo. We haven't even completed the whole segment yet. What else did he survive?
2 years later, in 1965, he was traveling on a bus that was crossing a bridge. The icy conditions caused the bus's wheels to lock up, sending the vehicle crashing through the safety barrier and into the valley below. 4 passengers lost their lives, yet Frayne survived once again.
Huh? How?
After multiple accidents involving public transportation,
Bro, I would get PTSD just by living.
he decided to rely on his own car, only to find that it wasn't any safer. In 1970,
Oh my,
while driving, his engine suddenly burst into flames. Miraculously, he managed to jump out in time and survived, but this wasn't his only brush with fire. 3 years later, in 1973, while driving another car, the fuel pump ruptured, causing yet another fire.
Bro.
This time, the flames were blown directly toward him through the air vents. Despite suffering burns, he once again managed to escape. As if that weren't enough, in 1975, he survived being hit by a bus.
Bro. Survive a train, a freaking plane, crashing bus, 3 car accidents or like malfunction.
Then, just a year later, he had another near-death experience when his car fell off a mountain road, plummeting 300 feet after a careless driver forced him off the road. The car exploded upon impact, but Frayne managed to survive by jumping out of the vehicle's window mid-fall and landing on a tree. And by the
Yo, do the lottery right now.
way, he won the lottery in 2003.
Okay, there we go.
If you like this,
yeah, bro. Not only did that guy cheated death, bro, he cheated life. And as Frank walked home, refusing to use any type of vehicle ever again, his shoes burned to flames. There you guys have it. People who cheated death. What the hell was this? That last guy literally cheated life. If you guys want to see more content like this, click this video here.